Hi guys, I'm back. Today I'm going to Mark 6-10, Proverbs 7 and Psalm 67. Let's get started. Jesus left there and went to his hometown of Nazareth. His disciples went with him. When the Sabbath day came, he began to teach in the synagogue. Many who heard him were amazed. Where did this man get these things, they asked. What's this wisdom that has been given to him? What are these remarkable miracles he is doing? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son? Isn't this the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon? Aren't his sisters here with us? They were not pleased with him at all. Jesus said to them, a prophet is honored everywhere except in his own town. He doesn't receive any honor among his relatives or in his own home. Jesus placed his hands on a few sick people and healed them, but he could not do any other miracles there. He was amazed because they had no faith. Jesus went around teaching from village to village. He called the 12 disciples to him. Then he began to send them out to write. He gave them authority to drive out evil spirits. Here's what he told them to do. Take only a walking stick for a trip. Do not take a bread or a bag. Take no money in your belts. Wear sandals, but do not take extra clothes. When you are invited into a house, stay there until you leave town. Some places may not welcome you or listen to you. If they don't, leave that place and shake the dust off your feet. That will be a witness against the people living there. They went out and they preached that people should turn away from their sins. They drove out many demons. They poured olive oil on many sick people and healed them. King Herod heard about this. Jesus' name had become well known. Some were saying, John the Baptist has been raised from the dead. That is why he has the power to do miracles. Others said, he is Elijah. Still others claim, he is a prophet. He is like the one of the prophets of long ago. But when Herod heard this, he said, I had just John's head cut off, and now he has been raised from the dead. In fact, it was Herod himself who had given orders to arrest John. He had him tied up and put in prison. He did this because of Herodias. She was the wife of Herod's brother Philip, but now Herod was married to her. John had been saying to Herod, it is against the law for you to be married to your brother's wife. Herodias couldn't forgive John for saying that. She wanted to kill him, but she could not, because Herod was afraid of John, so he kept John safe. Herod knew John was a holy man who did what was right. When Herod heard him, he was very puzzled, but he liked to listen to John. Finally, the right time came. Herod gave a banquet on his birthday. He invited his high officials and military leaders. He also invited the most important men in Galilee. Then the daughter of Herodias came in and danced. She pleased Herod and his dinner guests. The king said to the girl, ask me for anything you want. I'll give it to you. And he gave her his promise. He said to her, anything you ask for, I'll give you. I'll give you up to half my kingdom. He went out and said to her, what should I ask for? The head of John the Baptist, she answered. Now, once the girl hurried to ask the king. She said, I want you to give me the head of John the Baptist on a big plate right now. The king was very upset. He thought about his promise and his dinner guests, so he did not want to say no to the girl. So he sent a man right away to bring John's head. The man went to the prison and cut off John's head. He brought it back on a big plate. He gave it to the girl, and she gave it to her mother. John's disciples heard about this, so they came and took his body. Then they placed it in a tomb. The apostles gathered around Jesus. They told him all they had done and taught, but many people were coming and going, so they did not even have a chance to eat. Then Jesus said to his apostles, come with me by yourselves to a quiet place. You need to get some rest. So they went away by themselves in a boat to a quiet place. But many people who saw them leaving recognized them. They ran from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When Jesus came ashore, he saw a large crowd. He felt deep concern for them. They were like sheep without a shepherd, so he began teaching them many things. But at that time it was late in the day. His disciples came to him. There is nothing here, they said. It's already very late. Send the people away. Then they can go to the nearby countryside and villages to buy something to eat. But Jesus answered, you give them something to eat. They said to him, that will take more than half a year's pay. Should we go and spend that much on bread? Are we supposed to feed them? How many loaves do you have? Jesus asked. Go and see. When they found out, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fish. Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in grapes on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of 100s and 50s. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He looked up to heaven and gave thanks. He broke the loaves into pieces. Then he gave them to his disciples to pass around to the people. He also divided the 2 fish among them. All of them ate and were satisfied. The disciples picked up 12 baskets of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of men who had eaten was 5,000. Right away, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat. He had them go on ahead of him to Bethsaida. Then he sent the crowd away. After leaving them, he went up on a mountainside to pray. Later that night, the boat was in the middle of the Sea of Galilee. Jesus was alone on land. He saw the disciples pulling hard on the oars. The wind was blowing against them. Shortly before dawn, he went out to them. He walked on the lake. When he was about to pass by them, they saw him walking on the lake. They thought he was a ghost, so they cried out. They all saw him and were terrified. Right away, Jesus said to them, "Be brave, it is I. Don't be afraid." Then he climbed into the boat with them. The wind died down, and they were completely amazed. They had not understood about the loaves. They were stubborn. They went across the lake and landed at Gennesaret. There they tied up the boat. As soon as Jesus and his disciples got out, people recognized him. They ran through that whole area to bring to him those who were sick. They carried them on mats where they heard he was. So he went to the villages, the towns, and the countryside. Everywhere he went, the people brought the sick to the market areas. Those who were sick begged him to let them touch just the edge of his clothes, and all who touched his clothes were healed. The Pharisees gathered around Jesus. So did some of the teachers of the law. All of them had come from Jerusalem. They saw some of his disciples eating food with unclean hands. That means they were not washed. The Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands to make them clean. That's what the elders teach. When they come from the market, they do not eat unless they wash. And they follow many other teachings. For example, they wash cups, pitchers, and kettles in a special way. So the Pharisees and the teachers of the law questioned Jesus. "Why don't your disciples live by what the elders teach?" they asked. "Why do they eat their food with unclean hands?" He replied, "Isaiah was right. He prophesied about you people who pretend to be good. He said, 'These people honor me by what they say, but their hearts are far away from me. Their worship doesn't mean anything to me. They teach you nothing but human rules.' You have let go of God's command, and you are holding on to teachings that your people have made up." Jesus continued speaking. "You have a fine way of setting aside God's commands. You do this so you can follow your own teachings. Moses said, 'Honor your father and mother.' He also said, 'Anyone who asks for bad things to happen to their father or mother must be put to death.' But you allow people to say what they might have been used to help their parents in Corban. Corban means a gift set apart for God. So you no longer let them do anything for their parents. You make the word of God useless by putting your own teachings in its place. And you do many things like this." Again, Jesus called the crowd to him. He said, "Listen to me, everyone. Understand this. Nothing outside of a person can make them unclean by going into them. It is what comes out of them that makes them unclean." Then he left the crowd and entered the house. His disciples asked him about this teaching. "Don't you understand?" Jesus asked. "Don't you see? Nothing that enters a person from the outside can make them unclean. It doesn't go into their heart. It goes into their stomach. Then it goes out of the body." In saying this, Jesus was calling all foods clean. Then he went on to say, "What comes out of a person makes them unclean. Evil thoughts come from the inside, steal from a person's heart. So do sexual sins, stealing, and murder. Adultery, greed, and hate and cheating come from a person's heart too. So do desires that are not pure, and wanting what belongs to others. And so do telling lies about others and being proud and being foolish. All these evil things come from inside a person and make them unclean." Jesus went from there to a place near Tyre. They entered the house. He did not want anyone to know where he was, but he could not keep her secret. Soon a woman heard about it. An evil spirit controlled her little daughter. The woman came to Jesus and fell at his feet. She was a Greek, born in Syrian Phoenicia. She begged Jesus to drive the demon out of her daughter. First, let the children eat all they want, he told her. It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. Lord, she replied. Even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he told her, that was a good reply. You may go. The demon has left your daughter. So she went home and found her child lying on the bed, and the demon was gone. Then Jesus left the area of Tyre and went through Sidon. He went down to the Sea of Galilee and into the area known as the 10 Cities. There some people brought a man to Jesus. The man was deaf and could hardly speak. They begged Jesus to place his hand on the man. Jesus shook the man to one side, away from the crowd. He put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. Jesus looked up to heaven. With a deep sigh, he said to the man, Ephphatha, that means be open. The man's ears were open. His tongue was freed up, and he began to speak clearly. Jesus ordered the people not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were really amazed. He's done everything well, they said, and even makes deaf people able to hear. He makes those who can't speak able to talk. During those days, another large crowd gathered. They had nothing to eat, so Jesus called for his disciples to come to him. He said, I feel deep concern for these people. They have already been with me 3 days. They don't have anything to eat. If I send them away hungry, they will become too weak on their way home. Some of them have come from far away. His disciples answered him, There's nothing here, they said. Where can anyone get enough bread to feed them? How many loaves do you have? Jesus asked. 7, they replied. He took the crowd to sit down on the ground. He took the 7 loaves and gave thanks to God. Then he broke them and gave them to his disciples. They passed the pieces of bread around to the people. The disciples also had a few small fish. Jesus gave thanks for them too. He told the disciples to pass them around. The people ate and were satisfied. After that, the leftovers, the disciples picked up 7 baskets of leftover pieces. About 4,000 people were there. After Jesus sent them away, he got into a boat with his disciples. He went to the area of Dalmanutha. The Pharisees came and began to ask Jesus questions. He wanted to test him, so they asked him for a sign of heaven. He sighed deeply. He said, Why do people ask for a sign? What I'm about to tell you is true. No sign will be given to you. Then he left me. He got back into the boat and crossed to the other side of the lake. The disciples had forgotten to bring bread. They had only 1 loaf with them in the boat. Be careful, Jesus warned. Watch out for the yeast of the Pharisees, and watch out for the yeast of Herod. They talked about this with each other. They said, He must be saying this because we don't have any bread. Jesus knew what they were saying, so he asked them, Why are you talking about having no bread? Why can't you see or understand? Are you stoned? Do you have eyes and still don't see? Do you have ears and still don't hear? And you don't you remember? Earlier I broke 5 loaves for the 5,000. How many baskets apiece did you pick up? 12, they replied. Later I broke 7 loaves for the 4,000. How many baskets apiece did you pick up? 7, they answered. He said to them, Can't you understand yet? Jesus and his disciples came into Bethsaida. Some people brought a blind man to him. They begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand. Then he led him outside the village. He spit on the man's eyes and placed his hands on him. Do you see anything? Jesus asked. The man looked up. He said, I see people. They look like trees walking around. Once more, Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes. Then his eyes were opened so that he could see again. He saw everything clearly. Jesus sent him home. He told him, Don't even go into the village. Jesus and his disciples went on to the villages and the cities that were filled with people. On the way, he asked them, Who do people say I am? They replied, Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, still others say one of the prophets. But what about you? He asked. What do you say I am? Peter answered, You are the Messiah. Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about it. Jesus then began to teach his disciples. He taught them that the Son of Man must suffer many things. He told them that the elders would not accept him. The chief priests and the teachers of the law would not accept him either. He must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke clearly about this. Peter took Jesus to one side and began to scold him. Jesus turned and looked at his disciples. He scolded Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You are not thinking about the things God cares about. Instead, you are thinking only about the things humans care about." Jesus called the crowd to him along with his disciples. He said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must say no to themselves. They must pick up their cross and follow me. Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the good news will save it. What good is it if someone gains the whole world but loses their soul? Or what can anyone trade for their soul? Suppose anyone is ashamed of me and my words among these adulterous and sinful people. Then the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels." Jesus said to them, "What I'm about to tell you is true. Some who are standing here will not die before they see that God's kingdom has come with power." After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him. He led them up a high mountain. They were all alone. There in front of them his appearance was changed. His clothes became so white they shone. They were whiter than anyone in the world could bleach them. Elijah and Moses appeared in front of Jesus and his disciples. The two of them were talking with Jesus. Peter said to Jesus, "Rabbi, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters. One will be for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." Peter didn't really know what to say because they were so afraid. Then a cloud appeared and covered them. A voice came from the cloud. It said, "This is my son, and I love him. Listen to him." They looked around. Suddenly they no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus. They came down the mountain. On the way down, Jesus ordered them not to tell anyone what they had seen. He told them to wait until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves. But they asked each other what rising from the dead meant. So then they asked Jesus, "Why do the teachers of the law say that Elijah has to come first?" Jesus replied, "That's right, Elijah does come first. He makes all things new again. So why is it written that the Son of Man must suffer much and not be accepted? I tell you, Elijah has come. They have done to him everything they wanted to do. They did it just as it is written about him." Then Jesus and those who were with him came to the other disciples. They saw a large crowd around them. The teachers of the law were arguing with them. When all the people saw Jesus, they were filled with honor, and they ran to greet him. "What are you arguing with them about?" Jesus asked. The man in the crowd answered, "Teacher," he said, "I brought you my son. He is controlled by an evil spirit. Because of this, my son can't speak anymore. When the spirit takes hold of him, he throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth. He grinds his teeth, and his body becomes stale. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they couldn't do it." "You unbelieving people," Jesus replied. "How long do I have to stay with you? How long do I have to put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. As soon as the spirit saw Jesus, it threw the boy into a fit. He fell to the ground. He rolled around and foamed at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "Since he was a child," he answered. "The spirit has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us. Please help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything is possible for the one who believes." Right away the boy's father cried out, "I do believe. Help me overcome my unbelief." Jesus saw that a crowd was running over to see what was happening. Then he ordered the evil spirit to leave the boy. "You spirit that makes him unable to hear and speak," he said, "I command you, come out of him. Never enter him again." The spirit screamed. It shook the boy wildly. Then it came out of him. The boy looked so lifeless that many people said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand. He lifted the boy to his feet, and the boy stood up. Jesus went indoors, and his disciples asked him in private, "Why couldn't we drive out the evil spirit?" He replied, "This kind can come out only by prayer." They left that place and passed through Galilee. Jesus did not want anyone to know where they were. That was gone because he was teaching his disciples. He said to them, "The Son of Man is going to be handed over to men. They will kill him. After 3 days he will rise from the dead." But they didn't understand what he meant, and they were afraid to ask him about it. Jesus and his disciples came to a house in Capernaum. There he asked them, "What were you arguing about on the road?" But they kept quiet. On the way, they had argued about which one of them was the most important person. Jesus sat down and called for the 12 disciples to come to him. Then he said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last. They must be the first. They must be the servant of everyone." Jesus took a little child and had the child stand among them. Then he took the child in his arms. He said to him, "Anyone who welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. Anyone who welcomes me, also welcomes the one who sent me. Teacher, said John. We saw someone driving out demons in your name. We told him to stop, because he was not one of us. Do not stop him, Jesus said. For no one who does a miracle in my name can in the next moment say something bad about me. Anyone who is not against us is for us. What I'm about to tell you is true. Suppose someone gives you a cup of water in my name because you belong to the Messiah. That person will certainly not go without a reward. What if someone leads one of these little ones who believe in me to sin? If they do, it would be better if a large millstone was hung around their neck and they were thrown into the sea. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. It would be better for you to enter God's kingdom with only one hand than to go into hell with two hands. In hell, the fire never goes out. If your foot causes it to sin, cut it off. It would be better to enter God's kingdom with only one foot than to have 2 feet and be thrown into hell. If your eye causes you to sin, poke it out. It would be better for you to enter God's kingdom with only one eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into hell. In hell, the worms that eat them do not die. The fire is not put out. Everyone will be salted with fire. Salt is good, but suppose it loses its saltiness. How can you make it salty again? Have salt among yourselves and be at peace with each other. Jesus left that place and went into the area of Judea and across the Jordan River. Again, crowds of people came to him. As usual, he taught them. Some Pharisees came to test Jesus. They asked, Does the law allow a man to divorce his wife? What did Moses command you? He replied. They said, Moses allowed the man to write a letter of divorce and send her away. You were stubborn. That's why Moses read you this law, Jesus replied. But at the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. That's why a man will leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. The 2 of them will become one. They are no longer 2, but 1. So no one should separate what God has joined together. When they were in the house again, the disciples asked Jesus about this. He answered, What if a man divorces his wife and gets married to another woman? He commits adultery against her. And what if she divorces her husband and gets married to another man? She commits adultery. People were bringing little children to Jesus. They wanted him to place his hands on them to bless them. But the disciples told them to stop. When Jesus saw this, he was angry. He said to his disciples, Let the little children come to me. Don't keep them away. God's kingdom belongs to people like them. What I'm about to tell you is true. Anyone who will not receive God's kingdom is like a little child will never enter it. Then he took the children in his arms and placed his hands on them to bless them. And as Jesus started on his way, a man ran up to him. He fell on his knees before Jesus. Good teacher, he said, what must I do to receive eternal life? Why do you call me good? Jesus answered. No one is good except God. You know what the commandments say. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not be a false witness. Do not cheat. Honor your father and mother. Teacher, he said, I have obeyed all those commandments since I was a boy. Jesus looked at him and loved him. You are missing one thing, he said. Go and sell everything you have. Give the money to those who are poor. You will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me. The man's face fell. He went away sad because he was very rich. Jesus looked around. He said to his disciples, How hard it is for rich people to enter God's kingdom. The disciples were amazed at his words. But Jesus said again, Children, how hard is it to enter? It is to enter God's kingdom. Is it hard for a camel to go through the eye of a needle? It is even harder for someone who is rich to enter God's kingdom. The disciples were even more amazed. They said to each other, Then who can be saved? Jesus looked at them and said, With people this is impossible, but not with God. All things are possible with God. Then Peter spoke up, We have left everything to follow you. What I'm about to tell you is true. Jesus replied, Has anyone left home or family or fields before me and the good news? They will receive 100 times as much in this world. They will have homes and families and fields, but they will also be treated badly by others. In the world to come, they will live forever. The many who are first will be last, and the last will be first. They are on their way up to Jerusalem. Jesus was leading the way. The disciples were amazed. Those who followed were afraid. Again, Jesus took the 12 disciples to one side. He told them what was going to happen to them. We are going up to Jerusalem, he said. The Son of Man will be handed over to the law. They will sentence him to death, Then they will hand him over to the Gentiles. They will make fun of him and spit on him. They will whip him and kill him. 3 days later he will rise from the dead." James and John came to Jesus. They were the sons of Zebedee. "Teacher," they said, "we would like to ask you for a favor." "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right hand in your glorious kingdom. Let the other one sit at your left hand." "You don't know what you're asking for," Jesus said. "Can you drink the cup of suffering I drink? Or can you go through the baptism of suffering I must go through?" "We can," they answered. Jesus said to them, "You'll drink the cup I drink, and you will go through the baptism I go through. But it is not for me to say who will sit at my right or left hand. These places belong to those they are prepared for." The other 10 disciples heard about it. They became angry at James and John. Jesus called them together. He said, "You know about those who are rulers of the Gentiles. They hold power over their people. They hire officials, order them around. Don't be like that. Instead, anyone who wants to be important among you must be your servant, and anyone who wants to be the first must be the slave of everyone. Even the Son of Man did not come to be served. Instead, he came to serve others. He came to give his life as the price for setting many people free." Jesus and his disciples came to Jericho. They were leaving the city. A large crowd was with them. A blind man was sitting by the side of the road begging. His name was Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus means son of Timaeus. He heard that Jesus of Nazareth was passing by, so he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many people commanded him to stop. They told him to be quiet, but he shouted even louder, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call for him." So they called out to the blind man, "Cheer up, get up on your feet. Jesus is calling for you." So he threw his coat to one side. Then he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to be able to see." "Go," said Jesus. "Your faith has healed you." Right away he could see, and he followed Jesus along the road. Proverbs 7. "My son, obey my words. Store my commands inside. Obey my commands, and you will live. Guard my teachings as you would guard your own eyes. Write them on your fingers. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister. Say to understand, you are a member of my family. They'll keep you from a woman who commits adultery. They'll keep you from the smith talk of a silver one." I stood at the window of my house. I looked out. Among those who were childish, I saw a young man who had no sense. He went down the street near that silver woman's home. He walked to her house. The sun had gone down, and the day was fading. The darkness of night was falling. A woman came out to me. She was dressed like a prostitute and had a clever plan. She was wild and pushy. She never stayed at home. Sometimes she's in the street. Sometimes she's at other places. At every corner she was. She took hold of the young man and kissed him. With a bold face she spoke to him. She said, "Today I offered what I promised I would. At home I have meat left over from my fellowship offering. So I came out to meet you. I looked for you, and now found you. I have come out of my bed with colored sheets from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with spices. I have used myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink our fill of love until morning. Let's enjoy ourselves by sleeping together. My husband isn't home. He's gone on a long journey. He took his bag for me. He won't be home for several days." She led him astray with a clever word. She timed him with a smooth talk. All at once he followed her. He was like an ox going to be killed. He was like a deer stepping into a trap until an arrow struck its liver. He was like a bird rushing into a trap. Little did he know it would cost him his life. "My son, listen to me. Pay attention to what I say. Don't let your heart turn to a way. Turn still onto the path. She has brought down a lot of men. She has killed a huge crowd. Her house is a road to the grave. It leads down to the place of the dead." Proverbs 60. Psalm 67. God, have mercy on us and bless us. May you be pleased with us. Then your ways will be known on earth. All nations will see that you have the power to save. God, may the nations praise you. May all the people on earth praise you. May the nations be glad and sing for joy. You rule the people of the earth fairly. You guide the nations of the earth. God, may the nations praise you. May all the people on earth praise you. The land produces its crops. Look, God our God, bless us. May God continue to bless us. Then people from one end of the earth to the other will have respect for him. Now that's done, I should now do the Lord's Prayer. Please bow your heads. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, Forgive us our debts, as we have also forgiven our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. For yours is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. See you tomorrow. Bye.